Okay. I haven't been live in a long time. I thought it would be fun to show up, show up in live and have a quick chat about some things that have been coming up a lot actually in discussion. So I hope you all are well. I hope my sound is working okay. I haven't done this in quite some time. And it's raining outside, so you may catch a bit of rain in the background. I'm not sure if it filters out the noise quite well, but yeah, I thought I would come on here and talk about transcending pain. And I want to, it's going to branch off into many different areas, of course. There's a lot to talk about regarding this. And the reason why I'm talking about it, a friend of mine and I had a phone call, we were chatting on the phone the other day. And he comes, he's like a longtime friend, 15 years. We've probably been friends for maybe even more, and he comes from an industry of he works, he's an economist, so he's extremely intelligent and not so much spiritual, but we can definitely meet each other in many different ways, and he's an amazing individual. And we were talking about what's changing in the world, and um, how fast it's changing, and he's been struggling with finding work. He wants to change his path, but he is employed. But yeah, he was talking about looking for employment in different areas of the world, and it's taken a long time for the process to happen. But it led us into other different topics about what's happening with the world and the economy and people and everything else. Um, and just everything's changing. Everything is changing. Where I feel even like structurally things are going to change, and not only changing within us. I mean, this channel here is all about this self, changing within here, which is a reflection in our world. What's happening within here on a very micro level is also happening on a macro level as a reflection in the world. So we're all, if you really want to get complex about it, we're all moving with this change. So the change that we're seeing or that we're feeling within us, that we're going through on a personal level, is also happening in bigger ways and in bigger contexts in the world. And so we were chatting about this, and I said, yeah, I just feel like everything is going to get blown apart. Even the way we see money, even the way we're working, of course, is going to change. It's all up for question because it just has run its course. It's running its course, and we're evolving now. We have an opportunity to evolve, and many of you here are most likely on that path. But I also feel there's going to be a lot of disruption to move us into what's next. And I don't think really anyone knows what it is. And we were talking about this, and I even mentioned about money. I feel money is going to change. I honestly feel that the way we operate is so it feels archaic in a way regarding money and transactions and wealth and the way we've been living. Again, it's not working. And again, I have no idea where it's going to go or what it's going to look like in our future, but it definitely is going to change. It definitely is going to change. And that's what's leading into this conversation. So, and he mentioned, as an economist, he mentioned there's going to be a lot of pain with it that's going to come with it. And again, when we think about what's happening within ourselves and then what's happening in the world, there are a lot of ways that we can relate to what's happening in the world based on what is potentially happening within ourselves. And when he said there's a lot of pain coming with this change, I definitely agreed. And then I took a few days to sit with it for a while and think about it, because I feel even in the context of pain, considering there might be a lot of pain coming up, there may be a lot of suffering, there may be even our own pain that becomes triggered if we are having disruptions in the way that in maybe our career path or in a life that we had built for so long all of a sudden falls apart and completely becomes dismantled. There can be a lot of pain with that. But what's happening is the world is going to keep pushing us until we change, until we look. I don't want to say, I don't want to sound typical with this, but it is really about looking within ourselves to see where our relationship is with pain and where our attachments reside. You know, if we're attached to a certain career path, if we're attached to a certain expectation, if we're attached to a certain lifestyle, if we're attached to a certain relationship, if we're attached to, you know, we have these expectations on the way we want life to be and the path that we're on. And the more we hold on to that, the more pain we're going to feel because we're resisting the flow of life, we're resisting the change, we're resisting the order, and we're resisting the potential. But it's really difficult to let go of what we have built and what we've become so comfortable with and familiar with. And this feeds into other discussions that I've been talking about as well with regards to control and how we can actually, I'm working on the arthritis video right now. So it's really touching on that. And physically in our bodies, we can understand what's happening within our deeper self based on what our body is saying to us. So I'm uploading the video on arthritis probably tomorrow or maybe the day after. But it really does have arthritis does have a very strong correlation with control, holding on very tightly. So when we are holding on tightly to the familiar and to what well, it's also reflective of a level of safety. It's not allowing for fluidity and trust to take form with what is. So the level of pain that the world will see and is seeing currently right now is based on the level of comfort or holding on to what has felt familiar. And even if that requires living in the pain and going back into my past, I was reflecting on when I lived in pain, when I was perpetually living in pain, I got used to it and I was suffering so much. And now that I've worked out of, I would say, the majority of it, there's probably still some coming, who knows? But I almost don't remember what it feels like. It feels like such a long time ago when I was really suffering and full time suffering. And so the world is naturally going to push us and squeeze us until we learn to understand our deeper self and what we're holding on to so tightly. The world is going to reflect that and squeeze us and keep pushing us until we can let go, until we can arrive at a greater state of peace within ourselves. And that's a whole process. But when my friends said there's pain coming with this process, with this shift, with this change, and I agreed, but then I reflected on this and I said, well, it's perfect because it really is allowing individuals, and some people won't see it, some people won't see the message it's providing us or the opportunity it's providing us for growth and for evolution. And unfortunately, it will be part of their life, maybe until the end. But I do feel the more we're getting pushed and squeezed, the more we're also, if we grab hold of the opportunity, seeing more within ourselves of how we're reacting to the process and why we've become so entangled and so connected to it, rather than finding the opportunity for growth and flow with it. Right. So as soon as we resist something, that's the ego jumping in and wanting to be safe and wanting control over the situation or wanting to fight it even. So any kind of resistance that happens within ourselves, and the pain is part of it. Right. So if we are in pain, we're resisting something. We're resisting trust. We're resisting flow. We're resisting the opportunity to let go and to reflect on what is actually happening within our life and within our reality for us to work with rather than resisting it. And as soon as we resist the process of change within our world, maybe loss, transformation, we're not allowing ourselves to work with it, right? And that's where the pain comes in. That's where the suffering, the looking at life as a harsh place and nothing's working and everything's falling apart and everything's bad. And yes, there's horrible stuff in the world, and I don't want to discount it and negate it, but the only way we're going to evolve through this is to look for the pathway of evolution through the pain, through the suffering, through the loss, through the destruction. So I remember my mentor teacher, she taught me something really interesting not too long ago. Well, it was a while ago, but it stuck with me. And it took a long time to actually really grasp and to humbly accept it. My ego was definitely not wanting to fully accept it. It was whenever I would look at someone else or look at problems in the world, or even if someone was projecting on me, whenever I would attach myself to that problem, I would look at that person as, why are they doing that? And why are they acting that way? And acting that way is not good. And that's, whatever. And I would criticize it, or I would be affected by someone doing something to me or saying something to me, or maybe not liking me. And as a Libra, being a people pleaser, that's been the hard pill to swallow throughout my life, but I'm getting better at it. But whenever I would almost attach myself to these issues and to these people and to their problems and to their situations and stories, I was giving myself away, and I wasn't being accountable for my own self, for my own emotions and for my actions. And she nailed me a couple times by saying, whatever anyone is doing and whatever anyone is saying or how they feel about you is none of your business. And at first I was a little offended by what she said, but then I got it and I understood that what anyone says to me, what anyone does, or what anyone is doing in their life that I might not agree with is none of my business. It's none of my business. It's none of our business what other people are doing, how they're doing it, what they're saying, how they feel towards us, or what they say to us. It's none of our business. But what happens when these interactions show up in our lives, we give our energy to it. We might blame someone, we might point the finger, we might criticize them, we might say, oh, how you're acting is so inappropriate and unacceptable. But what happens in that process is we lose ourselves in that process and we become very disempowered. And in that process, we're not understanding um, the message it's trying to show us on a deeper level. Rather, we get caught up very unknowingly in these patterns that are a reflection of our own inner patterns in the outer environment, in our outer environment. So if we are casting criticism towards other people or blaming other people, it's a reflection of something we are dissatisfied within ourselves, or something we don't want to face, or an aspect of ourselves where we may be very hard on ourselves. So everything that we are experiencing in our outer life is a reflection of something we haven't acknowledged, come to peace with, or integrated within ourselves. And so we're constantly giving ourselves out. We're blaming other people. We're blaming reality. We're blaming life. And I've done this over and over again. And we're looking at the faults of the world and what's wrong with the world. And what's happening when we do that is we lose ourself, and we're not being accountable for our own self and for our emotions and for our actions. Therefore, we externalize everything, right? We end up attaching ourselves onto people's problems. So even again, if we find faults in other people, or we dislike what other people are doing, or we find that they're doing things that we don't like or we disapprove of, it's reflecting something within ourself, a dissatisfaction within ourself, a disapproval of self, um, being critical and hard on ourselves, blaming ourselves for certain things. And we can also project onto other people in a way to make us feel better in that moment, or for us to have an upper hand in that moment, for us to sort of feed ourselves or ego in that moment. But when we are aware of what we're doing and understanding the patterns in which we are living by and being accountable for them, and accountability isn't being hard on ourselves or angry towards ourselves. It's for us to understand where we're giving ourselves away and what we haven't integrated within ourselves. So when we see these patterns in the ways that we're living based on patterns within ourselves that we haven't integrated or that we haven't healed or we haven't acknowledged yet, when we see those patterns, when we see those aspects within ourselves, we become more whole. We understand our pain. We understand people's pain. So actually, Robert Grant, he uploaded a video on, I think it was Instagram a few days ago or yesterday or something, and he was talking about his own story about his encounters with betrayal and how betrayal was really hard for him to deal with because he had deep abandonment wounds within himself. And so, whenever he experienced betrayal, he got really hurt. And he realized the reason why he was hurt was because he himself had wounds of abandonment that had not been healed within himself. But what he said at the end of it was, he said, once I had healed my abandonment wounds, if I have this right, once I healed my abandonment wounds, I now can see betrayal. I now will not be as affected by betrayal as I was in the past, which is partially true. It's partially true, but it goes beyond that. So when we understand our own inner wounds and our pain and our suffering and our patterns and our behaviors and this whole web of being a human being, when we dive into this and we start peeling back these layers and become accountable and notice our wounds and our behaviors and these experiences, then we start to understand how the world is constructed. We start to understand other people's pain, and we start to see how the reason why other people are behaving the way that they're behaving. And when we really resolve our wounds and our pains within ourselves, these labels of what was it that I called? What was it? Um, of betrayal, for Robert Grant, the example that he gave. So being betrayed by someone, those labels and those experiences will dissolve. They won't even have a name anymore because they are the behavioral patterns and byproducts of how we have been accustomed to behaving based on wounds that we haven't seen within ourselves. So if we've worked through our own inner web and complexities, etc., and we encounter someone who hasn't, well, for one, we will see them for who they are or what they're going through. And two, we will have a great deal of understanding of what they are experiencing and what they're going through and what led them to maybe being deceitful or betraying. And we won't be affected by it. I mean, maybe we might, you know, feel a bit of a loss, or we might get discouraged, or there might be a little bit of, maybe a bit of a setback in our life, or maybe not. Maybe we know our boundaries. Maybe we've become more intuitive and instinctually we know who to allow in our life and who to trust, etc. But if it does show up, we will naturally know that person's story. We'll know probably what happened to them in childhood, the pain that they're in, and why they're acting the way that they're acting. And that gives us an incredible amount of compassion and understanding towards humanity. And this is the evolution of pain and where we're going, to understand our patterns and to understand our deeper selves so that we can change the course and direction of humanity as a whole. Now, of course, that's a big undertaking and that's a big statement. We may not really, it may take a while until we get to the place of transcendence completely as a whole. But through understanding our own patterns and our inner workings and the mirroring effect of what people are showing us when we become affected by them, we will be able to break these cycles and change the course and direction of these interactions. So if you're met with someone who's going to betray you, you might stop the act of betrayment or betrayal, sorry, betrayal, if you are more self-aware and if you've worked through your pain and you're able to see the other person through the lens of compassion and understanding of where they're at, you most likely are going to deal with it in a very different way. And most likely you're able to deal with it in a way of compassion and understanding, which could, as a result, have a very significant impact in their life. So if someone who is hurt and someone who is angry and someone who's feeling lost and in their pain meets someone who has resolved their pain, you have someone who's resolved their pain, you have someone who's in their pain, and they connect, it's not going to stick. So if someone who's resolved their pain and someone who is in their pain come together, the person who's in their pain may even be positively affected by someone who's resolved their pain. Because if someone has not resolved their pain and someone who's in their pain have come together, that pain is going to morph into one, it's going to connect, it's going to stick. So the person who is going to betray another person or lie or make another person's life difficult, if there is a person who hasn't dealt with their pain and dealt with their wounds, they will become affected. And then they might go over here and then have another experience and push it onto another person, or even internalize it and it might affect their life in a worse way, an even worse way. So when we speak about accountability, accountability is claiming ownership over our actions, our beliefs, our perceptions, and our reality in our life. And when we're able to work on the patterns and understand ourselves, we can also break the patterns in a way where we become more empowered within ourselves. Now, this is the process of returning to our authentic self, to our pure self. And when we are in alignment with our higher self, I just uploaded the higher self meditation. When we are in alignment with our higher self, there's no friction. There's no friction at all. The alignment with your higher self is your pure, true source self without the friction. And I feel where we're going, as to what Robert Grant was saying, I feel that there isn't even in time when we are working on our pain and our suffering, and others are still operating in their pain and suffering. I feel that our pain, our ability to transcend pain and suffering will positively affect them, because we won't be attacking their pain or we won't be absorbing their pain. So one by one, we start to shift our pain, we start to transmute it, we start to release it, we start to transcend it, and we gain greater consciousness through the act of it. So we understand, oh, that's what it means to suffer. That's what it means to betray someone. That's what it means to be in fear. That's what it means to lie as a form of protection. That's what it means to do all these things because of being in a certain level of pain or having a certain past or having a certain story. And so when we meet each other, we're going to be meeting each other differently. And when we talk about empowerment is when we can bring ourselves back into ourselves, and when we're not losing ourselves in other people's stories. And I see this happening in the spiritual side as well, where there's anything from projecting onto other people of what other people are doing. They're not right. You can't say that. I don't like you for doing this. Or then controlling people and telling them what they should be doing and how they should be living their life. And so when that happens, an individual is giving their power to the other person, or they're entangling, or they're unconsciously connecting themselves to the person in either a way of control or a way of shame, or again, negativity of any kind, or whatever it is, a pattern, a belief that is a reflection of their inner self. And that happens a lot in the spiritual community, the savior complex, saving people. telling them what to do, what they should do, what they need to do to be better, to be fixed. And it comes from a missing part within oneself, a place where an individual may feel as though they need to feel whole within themselves. It's a reflective mechanism of how they are interacting with other people. Um, I have notes which are very messy, so just give me a moment here. Yeah, so when we arrive at more freedom within ourselves, now this is based on what I've experienced and where I feel this pathway can lead us is to self sovereignty. And it's sovereignty is the place that the place where we have arrived in our whole self, where we are not giving our energy away, where we're not attaching ourselves to the problems of the world, where we're not becoming affected by other people and the problems of the world. When we have become whole and complete within ourself, that is when we are sovereign. So some may argue that, well, I want to be free in this world, but there are such things as, you know, politics, taxes, recession, food prices going up, housing is becoming too expensive. All of those are outer experiences. And in order to master our inner domain, I feel very important not to focus on what's happening in the world because there are many, many solutions to create change and to not be part of the mayhem and the chaos in the world. And the reason why the mayhem and the chaos in the world exists is because we give our energy to it, we give our focus to it, and we become part of it. So we become part of that story of the war, the anger, the financial meltdown, the fear, the worry that we can't get ahead financially. We're basically absorbing all of the stories that are out there in the world and letting it affect the opportunity for us to become free within ourselves first. And when we see that, it's going to take everyone there, it's going to require everyone to have their own path to feel it and to sense it within themselves. But the more I've understood that within myself and understood how the world works, the more I know confidently that we have many options to become free. And to become free means first to become free within ourselves, to know what that feels like, rather than living in fear and fearing the worst case scenario of what can happen externally. So we might already be setting ourselves up for failure if we feel that we're never going to get ahead. The world is getting too expensive, it's too hard. I might not find a job that will help me get to where I want to go. There are many different solutions and there are many ways to get through and to create the life that you want. But what's required is a total, complete, full deconstruction of what we thought was the way. And sometimes that needs to be questioned. And it's good to question that. It's good to question it. It's good to question the world, life, reality, ourselves. Is it the way? Does this suit the way I want to live? Is this the path that I feel is right for me? And sometimes it might even be helpful to pretend that nothing exists. And if you had your way in this world and you wanted a life that matched who you are and what feels right for you, what would that look like and what would that entail? And start from there rather than getting stuck on what isn't working in the world and the mess and the drama and the difficulties and what other people are saying as far as this isn't working and that isn't working and all these bad aspects of life, rather than focusing on them or even considering them, completely letting them go and focus on what you want and what feels right for you. And if you had the golden key of opportunity, which you do, we all do, what would your path look like and where do you want to go? And allow for parts of that discovery to show you where to go, the synchronicities. And this is a whole different way of, I feel, existence that we're dropping into, that we're slowly moving into, that we're creating as we're moving along. And this is all new for a lot of us. It's new for me, but I'm seeing it more. And I'm also understanding how life operates. And in the past, the more I resisted and the more I pushed and the more I tried to control, the worse off I was. And this new way of being, in a way of, it's like totally different. Surrendering, listening, tuning in, feeling, trusting my gut, trusting my intuition, even though my old self, my old patterns, and my old thoughts, fears tell me otherwise sometimes, or they have. Now I've really moved more into trust and surrender and synchronicity and allowing. And it is moving so smooth, even though I am still met with a lot of fear here and there as I move along, but things are showing up so perfectly. It's insane. It's insane. And I know the direction that I'm headed is not going to be like what I expected. And that also is part of it, to let go of the expected expectation, the expectation, the expectation of what we hold on to. And I remember years ago, hi, Marilyn. I remember years ago when I wanted things done a certain way at a certain time, and that's all I held on to. I was so bound to fear and control. Control is a derivative of fear. And I was tied to my expectations. And when they weren't happening, the worse off I was. I would constantly be angry and mad and resentful because I wasn't getting what I wanted on my timeline. When I wanted something done in a certain way, at a certain time, certain expectation, when it wasn't met, I was worse off. I got angry, and it drove me even deeper and deeper down into frustration and feeling defeated completely. So this whole new way is opening up now, where I've moved past the relationship of control, holding on and wanting things done a certain way at a certain timeline, a certain expectation. And I have a feeling, in all honesty, where I'm going is not at all what I really had planned for. And that's okay. It's probably most likely going to be better than what I expected. It already is. Like, it's already shaping out to be shaping in ways that I never even imagined, in all honesty. Um, so the freedom aspect, the freedom of ourselves as humanity, we all have a right to be free. We all have a right to be free on this planet. And it has to come from us feeling free within ourselves first. And it also requires us to let go of the ways we've been used to functioning and living and operating. I feel there's a huge, massive change. Well, it's already happening. It's already happening. So going back to the original comment of my friend, having a chat with my friend, the world's shifting and everything is changing, and there's going to be a lot more pain. I feel an incredible opportunity, and it's an incredible opportunity to understand what pain means for all of us, in order for us to question it, and in order for us to look at pain differently, not in the way that we've been used to looking at it and feeling it and living with it, but understanding it maybe in a new light and in a new way that will, in fact, set us free and change the course of humanity and the direction of our lives. But it truly does have to happen within ourselves first, right? And I feel where we can go with this, we need to take that leap of faith in whatever way. I'm not going to give instructions here, but if you want freedom in your life of any kind, it has to start from within yourself. And that freedom requires a great deal of trust with life and within yourself, and with the possibility of something that we may not even be able to grasp as of yet. but being open to the possibility of what that could be, what that might feel like, and where we possibly could go with all of this, right? So transcending pain is um, it requires us to feel pain in order to transcend it. And through transcending pain, that's where we understand life and the world and others. And we need pain in order to awaken and to transcend and to evolve. I know it sounds sometimes a bit difficult to grasp, but it is helping us in many ways. And it's hurting a lot of people too. I know I'm not, again, dismissing everything that is happening in the world, but it is giving us an opportunity to look at life differently and to look at ourselves differently. And when we do, that's when we change. That's when we change. I think I touched on everything I wanted to touch on. Yeah, it's pretty crazy looking back in the past, actually. I feel like I need to write things down, and I've been journaling every now and then, but I honestly forget about the pain that I've gone through and how horrible it was and how painful it was. Um, it was so extreme and it was so it was so extreme and it was so intense that I can't even really articulate what it was like, and it's hard to remember. Yeah, it's pretty incredible going through it. All right, that's it. That's all. Good to see you, Marilyn. And yeah, the full moon is on Friday, so enjoy the full moon. I will be uploading a ritual over at the Shadow Project shortly. That's it. That's it. That's all. All right. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the full moon up ahead, and remember that pain leads to freedom, and freedom leads to evolution in many ways. In many ways. Yeah. All right. I'll see you soon. Take care.